Now, a lot of the ballot measures that are people concerned about guns, I'll talk about that here in a second. Also, something near and dear to Rob Dew's heart, marijuana. A lot of those outcomes are not yet public, but we'll keep you up to date on that.
Rob's never smoked marijuana.
I didn't say he smoked it. I said it's very near and dear
I want
to his
him
heart.
arrested if he has.
I'm just concerned about the hippies out there who do like to smoke.
We're drug testing you tomorrow.
You're concerned about Obama's right to smoke pot still as he used to do it.
I'm joking. Rob Dew is a great American.
I'm sure he is a great American. And something else. Oh, how did this get on the screen? The 50 cal Molon Labe T-shirt available at the INFOWARS shop. I just so happen to be wearing it right now. And you guys can pick that up at the INFOWARS shop. And we'll look at some other things. Let's take a look over here on the Twitter page, see if we can find something. This is a little bit off topic, but I thought this was very interesting, Alex. Lori K asked, why are there so many bioweapons labs in the area of Africa? I know you've been talking a lot about that in the recent weeks.
That's because on record, it's all a lot of it's declassified in South Africa, but it turned out it was happening all over Africa. Gaddafi was criticizing and trying to stop it. I'm not lionizing Gaddafi, but he was trying to help Africa. He was actually taking the money from his oil and trying to help everybody. That's why they set him up and overthrew him, and now they admit Libya's a failed state. He was constantly exposing it with scientists, but the South Africans he classified in '94, and people can look this up. We played the BBC clips and even 60 Minutes, but they had airborne Ebola that was race-specific to black people, Africans. They have just all sorts of stuff in the vaccines, HIV, souped up. People always say, well, where's the proof? It's even been on 60 Minutes. I mean, it's declassified. It's just people don't go look up the documents. And that's why they have the bio labs over there, is because since colonialism, here's Africa's problem. It's got more resources than probably the entire land mass. There's more in the ocean than Africa, they found, but it's hard to get because it's underwater. Africa is just filled with everything. Australia to a certain extent as well, but Africa just is so full of riches that they keep it destabilized to keep standard of living down so the people never get uppity and demand any real value. That's why every time a Westerner goes there, whether it's Merkel of Germany or Obama of the U.S., they go, by the way, I just landed in a huge jumbo jet, red carpet, $100 million, this visit, and I'm going to stay in a 20-bedroom, house or whatever. You shouldn't ever want a car or air conditioning.
Right.
So they want Africa to just, hey, just like you're telling us, you're ready to live in a 200-square-foot apartment. You're not going to have a car. As if we couldn't develop clean systems. They're just saying, get ready to be poor because we're going to be rich. And that's what's going on in Africa. But they'd rather Africa just be dead. And that's the problem is if you actually, the few tests they've done giving Africa its resources and not trying to destabilize them in Kenya and in Libya and a few other cases, Africa's done great. I'd love to be able to just fly over to Africa. It's far away as England. It's like 9 hours away. It'd be beautiful, big hotels, beautiful coast. Blows away the Caribbean on the west coast of Africa and other areas. But you can't go there. It's a hellhole because it's a deliberate destabilization program that's been going on for 500 years. Well, before that with the Arabs in North Africa. And so that's what's going on. But it's the same thing in feudalism. Rome controlled Germany and France for 500 years. And if you tried to build so much more than a mud hut, they'd slit your throat. So everything we see is a continuation of Roman systems of control. Only Rome's allowed to have technology. Right. Only the globalists are allowed to have technology. Jakari, any other comments on that?
Yeah, just talking about the Georgia race. That's one of the critical states for Republicans to take over the Senate. Now, I do want to ask a couple more at least one more Twitter question before you guys get back to your other news coverage. Stefan Nielsen asked, or makes the statement, there are no good politicians, all are crap, or almost all. So with that type of sentiment that a lot of people have, why should anybody get out and vote?
Well, that's a great question. I don't think it's the end-all, be-all going to fix everything. Ballot box is important. Cartridge box, if things go to hell in a handbasket, you got to defend yourself from thugs or whatever. Jury box, grand jury box, voting with your dollars. But the attitude that we're all screwed kind of trickles down to even voters. Oh, just go with the establishment. You've got to run for office. You've got to support the people. When someone has support, like a Ron Paul, they can get elected over and over again. So it really comes down to the people. If we're a virtuous people, we'll have a virtuous system. If we are a decadent people, we'll be ruled by a bunch of wolves. Jakari, what's your take on that question?
Yeah, just like you said, there are definitely some shenanigans that go up, especially at the big national races. But, as we talked about yesterday, your local races, your sheriffs, your city council members, your mayor, I think those are good races to get involved in because, you know, when it hits the fan, you know, you're going to need a good sheriff. You need a good mayor, not to get teamed up with these mayors against illegal guns or whatever their name is this week. And speaking on those guns, Alex, I want to talk about some of the ballot measures as far as the gun races. Now, we don't have the official numbers as far as the yeas or nays, but I'll talk now about the Alabama Right to Bear Arms Amendment. And it says, if approved by voters, the Constitution would be amended, explicitly provided that every citizen has a fundamental right to bear arms and that any restriction on this right would be subject to strict scrutiny. Additionally, it would provide that no international treaty or law shall prohibit, limit, or otherwise interfere with the citizen's fundamental right to bear arms, which basically means that the UN can't come in and start slapping around Alabama, telling them what rights they can have to keep and bear arms. Another big one that we talked about yesterday was the race in Washington, the ballot measure, talking about how we see Bill Gates and also Mayor Bloomberg getting in and trying to pretty much demand universal background checks. And particularly for that race, the Washington race, the initiative 594. We saw Everytown for Gun Sense, that was Mayor Bloomberg's group that teamed up with Moms Demand Action. They donated over $2 million, and also Bill and Melinda Gates, they donated over $1 million. And it says the Washington Universal Background Checks for Gun Purchases Initiative 594 is on November 4th. And it basically says that everything except transactions, well, not a transaction, but giving a firearm to a family member or an anti-gun would be subject to a universal background check.
Now, notice this dichotomy. You've got a state-sponsored bill to defend the republic, and it's not that we're obsessed with guns, but slaves are disarmed if they get our guns. The first gun laws were in the South after the Civil War by the Klan to disarm blacks that were defending themselves from the Klan and others. And Mao Zedong said political power grows out of the barrel of a gun. We have a special report on that coming up. This is so transparent. The government's arming to the teeth. It's illegitimate while trying to disarm us. You've got these anti-human people that run these Ebola labs in Africa that say, let's kill old people, let's have death panels, let's get rid of veterans on secret death list. I mean, Bill Gates doesn't just want to get rid of the black people. He wants to get rid of everybody. He is a total slime bag. His dad was a top eugenicist on record, and they're funding all over the country. Yukari just got into one case of this. I know you've covered it in detail, David Knight. So is Leanne. Here he is spending millions in races and hundreds of thousands in races to beat the Milwaukee sheriff, which they failed.
Yes,
so the good news is they're failing, and then I want to get Leanne's take on this, but we've got our own candidate where this show originates out of live in Austin, Texas, who's an Army vet, a great guy, running against the mayor pro tem who wants to run for mayor, you know, running for his seat.
Michael Cargill.
Yeah, Michael Cargill. Everybody needs to, I don't want to hear there's no good candidates. No, you haven't done your research. I'm not attacking that Twitter guy, that tweeter. But at the same time, I'm like Rick Perry now. I got to get on the tweeter. But, I mean, no, you need to run or find the good candidates and get them in there.
Exactly.
So
the guy I talked to earlier from New Hampshire, he's a decent guy. He was amazed. He said, one thing I got to say before we finish, he goes, everybody talks about how corrupt politics are. He goes, you have no idea till you get close to it just how bad it is. He's amazed at it. But he's somebody who's going to stand up for your fundamental rights. Would you rather have a situation where that sheriff that was targeted in Milwaukee, would you rather step back and out of cynicism say, it doesn't matter, I'm not going to show up at the polls, I'm not going to support him in any way whatsoever, and wind up with a sheriff who's going to do everything he can to take your guns? Or are you going to stand behind somebody who says, we can't be there to protect you under all circumstances? Get a firearm, learn how to use it. We'll do what we can to catch the criminals, but we can't be there when you're attacked because we don't know when you're going to be attacked, and neither do you, so be ready and be trained.
And notice in the Milwaukee County area, it's mainly whites. I think the number's like 70%. They're electing a black guy.
Yeah.
Because they could care less what color he is.
That's right.
They care about what he stands for.
And people there were upset about the fact that Bloomberg was trying to buy that race.
But that's what they're doing all over the country. The globalists are coming in, and this is just one model of what they're doing. So we have a duty when somebody like Cargill here in Austin runs to get behind him and support him, and or to run ourselves, because he'll be there injecting real issues in those debates on TV, on radio. He may not win this time. He'll probably win the next time. This is what it's all about. And that's why they try to demonize the Tea Party, because, you know, only white people would want to own guns. Only white people would want to own private property. You know, pure bull. Cubans want out from under Fidel Castro, and they're Cuban. This is universal to want to have freedom. And that's why we've got to get behind candidates, regardless of what color they are, what religion they are, whatever, if they support basic freedom. Jakari Jackson, I know you've got even more in there. Keep breaking down any other points.
Oh, I was just going to say the flip side to that anti-gun measure in Washington State, they also have Initiative 591, which is pretty much the exact opposite. They said, you know, they're not going to have any background checks unless it's federally a federal standard that is established, which I don't agree with that. But, you know, just like you said, there are bad measures, there are good measures, there are good candidates, and there are bad candidates. And I also want to encourage all of our viewers who are watching us, whether it's on prisonplanet.tv, on the YouTube, on infowars.com/show. Send out all these links. We'll also be on Ustream here in a few minutes with Staff Sergeant Joe Biggs. But you can go to the Facebook page, Alexander Emmerich Jones, also YouTube, The Alex Jones Show, Twitter, Real Alex Jones. Submit your questions, and hopefully we can get you on the air pretty soon.
Absolutely. And we're going to have Joe Biggs via Skype and Ustream here with us on the ground at Democratic and Republican gubernatorial candidate front lines. If Wendy Davis ends up winning, you know there's election fraud. They've been caught on video organizing illegals to vote. David?
Well, they had an article today on INFOWARS.com that showed that the front runner, Greg Abbott, the Republican, who was ahead of Wendy Davis by 20 percentage points, didn't show up on the ballot in a San Antonio location. I mean, that's one way to close that 20% shortfall is to make sure that your other candidate doesn't even appear on the ballot. And that's what we're talking to Bev Harris about later is a lot of the rigging of the voting machines and things that can actually be done at a local level. In Eureka, California, they actually have a good solution to some of this stuff, things that could be easily done, cheaply done at other locations that would allow you to monitor the vote. And that's what we need is transparency. And that's what we're getting less and less and less and less of in government is transparency. Obama, when he was running, said, we need to be transparent. Well, he's by far the least transparent administration we've ever had.
Leanne?
Well, and also, you know, it is so important to get out there and vote, especially in the midterms on a local level, because that is when you can get your people that you know personally, like Mike Cargill, that you know who he is, what he stands for. That's what just local grassroots people.
He's who you want. He's got a successful business. He started from nothing.
Right.
It's super successful with guns and gun training. He's an Army veteran. He's a family guy. He doesn't want to run. He's running to protect our rights. He's running because he's sick of being pushed around. That's the kind of person you got behind. It's like George Washington wants to go back to his farm. We need people that are there for duty, not for a bunch of power.
Right. And then to not be afraid to exercise the power you have. The states that have the ability to cast a recall, like they did in Colorado when Bloomberg and all these outside groups moved in and funneled all this money in to pass those strict gun laws. They were able to recall 3 of their representatives that got elected. Legislators. They took 3 of them out.
Well, I mean clearly there's been a realignment for a while. And they tried to put Obama in to pacify. Now they're going to try to take over the Tea Party and stop this. But this isn't Obama, their fake pacifier. This is a real move. A lot of bad Republicans are getting elected. But still a lot of good people are being elected. That's why the system is so freaked out. Now, we're now 1 hour into transmission. It's now 8 o'clock Eastern. It's now 7 o'clock Central in about 50 seconds. I want to go to Rob Duke because there's so much they've gotten ready tonight. We've got a bunch of interviews we did earlier today. We've got live interviews coming up. We've got a gun piece that we shot a few months ago that we finally got ready, that Josh Owens did a great job putting together, and Rob Duke and others did a great job shooting. Leanne goes out and becomes an absolute gun addict. Tell folks about that.
Yeah, and I'm just going to let you know we are having a little bit of a weird funkiness there. We're having the dancing ants that we're going to reset a couple cameras when we go to break here, so you can see how the weirdness happens.
I like dancing ants.
Yeah, so we've got them. We've had 3 cameras go down, and we fixed 1, and we're working on the other 2. So that's what happens in live TV. You have this stuff happen. It's one of the fun parts of live TV, and I've done live TV for many years now, and let me tell you.
I like dancing ants. Just leave it. Who cares?
There's nothing like it. Yeah.
It's like Michael Savage was on one time when we were having technical difficulties. Happens like once a year on radio. He goes, hey, I grew up in New York where they'd have like Mexican TV on one of the channels, like puppets hitting each other and lights falling. And, you know, it was like live. That was his favorite channel, even though he couldn't speak Spanish. And you know, that's the stuff I like. So this is real. Teleprompter free. Everybody's doing a fabulous job.
Well, I like that people can see behind the scenes and see where all that money is when they support us, where it's going. It's not, you're not out there on a yacht like taking all these vacations.
I wish I was.